So yeah, let me just show you my methodology and how I think through boxes as someone with OSCP, and I really think that should help. So the first thing that I like to do is to export the target like so. This just makes it so that I don't have to type the IP every time. I can simply do ping target and it will ping this IP, right? It's just so I can copy paste the nodes, which I will show you right now. And I can just use the same nodes over and over and over again, right? When I specify target. So while this is running in the background, I would like to just show you the overview of the room difficulties, right? So I made this room difficulty overview right here, so that if you only want to jump to easy machines, then you can simply just skip around and focus only on that. And then as you become more and more confident, you can jump to medium and you can do hard and you can do, you can jump back to some easy again, etc, etc, etc. But yeah, I thought this would be handy so that you don't come across a hard machine in like an early video and you get discouraged and think that that's expected. But yeah. So I really hope you enjoy that. And also, we also have some simple checklist Cherrytree notes right here, which you can download, which I think will really help you with methodology if you're new. So let me just show you how they look like. So they look like so, where there's a standalone section and there's 80 machine section, okay? So at the moment we're doing an 80 machine, so let me click there. And I have essentially made a checklist of a general methodology, which will be quite solid, right? It's made for beginners that doesn't yet have a methodology or know what would be really solid, good things to look for. So that's pretty much why I made this. So after we've done the full TCP port scan, then we simply just click this, right? And then we don't have to think about that. And then we can go down and down and down and really just make sure that there's not something important that we've forgotten about, right? It really is just a handy reference when you're stuck, and really just something useful that you can use, right? When going to machines. So let me see if this nmap scan has done something. The first part of the scan, by the way, so it's still ongoing. This might look like a lot, but really all I'm doing is that I am scanning this IP, right? With all the ports, and then I am forcing it right here to be a bit faster. Nmap by default isn't the fastest. Allow it to have 5 retries, and then I simply output the file right here. And then I just have the machine sleep to give the target some rest as well. And then I run a deeper nmap scan with like service enumeration and default scripts, etc. Not on all ports, but just top 1000 ports, right? And then I'll go back and fingerprint manually if there's any ports that is missed that I really want to see what is, right? And then I simply just do a vulnerability scan in the end using nmap scripting engine. So it really is just a copy paste that I attempt to do on every machine. It's a very solid start. So yeah. Now this one is done. And as you can see, it has already started on the next one with the deeper scan. But this one is usually good enough to really get a great start. So we can see that port 80 is open. Okay. So that usually either means that there's an actual website that we can find information, hopefully something like usernames, because in the list as well, we are incredibly interested in getting usernames, because then we can test stuff like asterisk posting, right? Which I'll show you if this becomes relevant for a machine, but it certainly is relevant in many other machines that I cover. So yeah, let me just check out if there's an actual website. Because it might also be related to something called Active Directory certificate services as well. But yeah, this is a website. So I can use GoBuster and brute force, etc., and which is not a bad idea. But when it comes to Active Directory, I tend to look for information like if I can find any usernames, etc. The image this doesn't contain like a user or something. The contact doesn't have much. Maybe team. That's about. Okay, so it doesn't tell us that much so far. Egoistical bench. Single page. Okay. So you can see some posts right there. Images. So we have someone called admin. Here we go. Here we have some usernames that I would at least be interested in. So let me just start by making a little user list. And I will test that with ASAP roasting. That's really all I have for now. Let me also quickly just let me also just quickly do some brute forcing on the website. So this is HTTP, and I don't need output for now. So we have images and we have fonts. These aren't particularly interesting for now. You can also see that the extension is HTML for the most part. So let me brute force for some files. I could let it finish, but I'm not sure it will find much interesting. Let's do it like so. Did we check out the blog one? They all just go to the same URL, the single.html. Yeah, this site doesn't have much interesting stuff. Alright. We have at least two possible usernames of sorts. Let me go through the Nmap scan, which does a bit deeper Nmap scan. Right. Mostly what I'm doing now is that I'm just going through the scan and I'm just checking the website, right? So I will definitely check this type of stuff, but for now I'm just checking some just checking the website for some basic usernames. Let me also to see if it has a robots.txt. That's also always a good thing to check. So it doesn't really seem like it. All right. Let me check with one more word list, and then I will not be more interested in this website. To be honest, I don't think it's going to be particularly interesting, but that's okay. One thing that I would like to check now is that I want to check these things, okay? So I want to check for anonymous access. So when we can do this, so I see that RPC is open, right? MSRPC, 135 is always RPC. This is Kerberos. When you see this, you basically know that this is a domain controller and this is Active Directory. 139 and 445, these are both SNB. And this is LDAP. And this is also LDAP. And I think this is also LDAP, if I remember. We also have a domain right here, which we would like to add to Etsy hosts. So let me just do that. Etsy hosts. With this IP right here. Just for some DNS purposes. like so. So now it's time to check for some anonymous access. So netexec will always tell us just the domain, right? So we can see that the domain is this. This is just normally how I like quickly checking the domain name. Let me try with user, nothing. Password, nothing. And then let's see if I have anonymous access to any shares. I don't have access to that. So let me try something called read brute. See if I can do that. I also don't have access to that. Let me see if the brute force found anything interesting. It really did not. Now, I also like checking with a guest account as well, not just like nothing, because as you can see, this is a different error. Access denied, but this account is disabled. This account is not always disabled, and it's always worthwhile to check. So now I've checked pretty much SMB with anonymous access, and I've also checked for public share rights with anonymous access. Now I would like to check for LDAP and RPC. Because again, RPC is open, and so is LDAP, right? So let me use netexec again. You can also use cracked mapexec, but netexec is the new and improved. So this one doesn't have the read brute flag, but it does have a uses flag, which can be sometimes incredibly useful if you're allowed to enumerate it. It does not really seem that we are able to do that. I don't think guest will work because guest was just disabled, right? Yes, status account disabled. So we don't really have too much so far. I would like to check with RPC as well, because we've now checked LDAP and we've checked SMB, but I want to check with RPC as well, at least. So let me go to my notes. This is how you can check for anonymous login. And you can see once again, I'm just writing target, so I don't have to specify the IP. It just makes it faster when I copy paste. It actually worked, but there's one thing that I want, and it's enumDAM users. We said I don't have access to do this, but if this worked, we would get all the usernames. So that is a bit annoying. Let me quickly also just check if they have ADCS running. I don't really have any credentials so far, but I believe this will be able to check it. Yeah. I don't think they have ADCS running, Active Directory Certificate Services. So that's also noteworthy. So let's see. We have pretty much done this. There is one... there's two more checks that I tend to do, just to be paranoid. I like checking Eno for Linux, because anonymous access is really important if you don't have any usernames or credentials rights. I just like checking this. And then I also like checking with the LDAP script using nmap as well. I don't suspect that these will find anything really, but I think it's worthwhile to check, simply just so that you have a clean, clear methodology, right? That just pretty much checks everything, so you know when to move on. So it's not able to really enumerate any shares. That's also what our experience was, and this tool seems to share that experience. So let me check this for 389, which is LDAP. And it pretty much just tries to enumerate what it can find with anonymous access of sorts using LDAP. So it did find some information, but let's see if any of that information is useful. So this is a lot if you haven't seen it before, but most of this is not really relevant. We would mostly be interested in getting some form of credentials here. LDAP service name. Okay. We do see Hugo Smith. Which could be relevant. Ooh. Okay, so let me just make a new one right here. So to just create some nodes. So how you would pretty much do that is that you would copy node and subnode right here in the active directory section if you're doing an AD machine, and then you paste it like so. Then you can simply call it whatever you call it the machine name. And you will see that it carries all of the attributes from the one we copied, which is extremely useful, right? All of the subnodes and all of this kind of structure, if you want to put it like so. When I'm just solving machine, I tend to just mainly go use the checklist. Although I personally don't really need this because I memorize it. It's more so just to make it simpler to teach. Hopefully this is helpful. And then here you can just spam some information, right? So, tried all anonymous access. Didn't find much. Did, however, find with LDAP enum and map script another possible username. And then let me just, it doesn't hurt to copy paste the command. And then we found Hugo Smith. Also found some possible usernames from website. So user, found Johnson and Watson. Okay. So this is mostly what we have to work with. It would definitely be worthwhile to really make sure that there's nothing here that I have missed, right? But let me try now. Let me try now with some ASCII roasting, right? At least against Johnson and Watson, and then let's try with Hugo Smith as well. We could also brute force against the usernames as well. But let me verify that they actually are valid, okay? So, Kerberos. This is a way you could enumerate against port 88, right? Kerberos, if a username actually is valid in a domain, which can be quite valuable. So, you would do it like so. This is also something I would do if I don't have any usernames, which I would go to next at some point. But for now, I just want to test these basic usernames rights, just to. So user, target, the domain right here would be egoisticalbank.local. So if I now mistype this, you will see that it gives this little error right here. So none of these were valid, but at least the domain is correct. Let's try with the Hugo user. So a cool way you can do this is that you can convert names to usernames using this tool. It's very handy. So let's just skip on that. Go into AD. And then we can do like so. We called ours user. No, it's not user. We need to make a file called let's just call it name. like so. So now it generates possible usernames with the Hugo Smith name that we give it, right? Which is quite handy. So let me try with this. Okay, so we have at least a valid... We know at least that this is a valid user. So that is a start. We don't really have too much to go off of so far. But we have at least a user. We could obviously try brute forcing this user against protocols like SND. Yeah, so I added that. But I don't have any credentials yet, right? And I don't really have the password of this user. So at least now we have a valid set of credentials, right? So it's progress, but we don't really have that much access at all. This has been a slow start for sure, but we can at least check this off right here. And we pretty much have done this right here. We have checked for ASTER posting with the users that we have, but I would like to find more users. Let me run this in the background. I'm not sure this is the intended path, but I would at least check that and then look at the other ports that we have open, okay? So these are all the ports that we have open. We do have DNS open as well. So don't mind checking that. You can check it with, sometimes we can find some subdomains that could be interesting. For instance, a subdomain for a website could definitely be a vector. So we can check it with, I believe, the -n is for name server and then D is the domain, I believe. So it didn't really find any usernames with that. Correct domain as well. Let's try that. And it also doesn't check to see how the site behaves with the actual DNS name as well. To see if it behaves differently in the slightest. Johnson, T1. So we do have Jenny Joy right there. That is also very noteworthy. Let me add that into the like I start adding all the names that are actually relevant. Actually, wait. Let me just add her for now. Single. We also have another name here as well. That would be nice to collect. Yeah, so this is all just the same. Okay, we should definitely generate some new lists then with this. That's good. If we have some more information, info@example.com, so that they do not giving us really anything useful there. Let's see if we have found any interesting subdomains possibly. I don't believe so. Let's try something like this. This is target. Okay, so we're not really finding anything here. But we do have using it. We do have some new names. And that's great. So really just let's add this to the list. Go into this. And then I believe we can just generate this once again. Check out the generated users. And now we have a lot more users. Because again, I would like to find a bunch of users, right, to test ASIC posting, because that's really one of very nice ways to get in. If you don't have a set of credentials, right, because we don't have any passwords. So let us try that. Generated users. And once again, the only thing we find is H. Smith. So we really are not finding much at all. Which is a bit frustrating, but that's fine. Okay. Yeah, there's really not that much interesting stuff. I'm really just checking for usernames. That's really where my methodology goes. And here we go. This is... Yes. Perhaps, did I miss this earlier? Quite possible. But yeah, this is really just where my mind space is at, right? It's just usernames. Sophie Driver, Bowie Taylor. Hugo Bear, and then Stephen Kerb. So let's add all of this to our name file. And then let's once again generate that. Let's once again generate that with this tool right here. And then let's try that. So we found more users again, so that's good. We found F. Smith as well. So this will not check for Kerber roasting, not mean Azure roasting. So let me use this tool right here. And let's check this new list that we have generated with Azure roasting, okay? So what we need is that we need a domain, which again we can find easily like so. Let's just grab that right there. And then we need the IP of the domain controller. We have that on the target environment variable. And then the user file with all of the usernames. That is going to be the generated one. And then we can output that into hashes. Let's try that. There we go. So it just took me some time to really find all of the usernames, but we got there eventually. And now we have something very workable, right? So I guess we can add it into the nodes. Found a bunch more usernames from this website right here. Generated username list with this tool. Tested for ASRP roasting. And it got a hash. Let's try cracking it, right? Let's try cracking this hash. So this is good. Now we have hash.txt. And as you can see, both of these are actually from the same user. This is the actual hash type right here. And this is the user. And this is the domain, right? And this is the rest of the hash. So yeah, and we can see right here, this is fsmith as well, just different capitalization. But sure, we can take both, why not? We have it in the hash.txt, and then we can try cracking it with John the Ripper. So let's try John, word list equals user share word list.rocky.txt, and then against hashes.txt. So we are essentially we essentially completed this by finding all the usernames. Just had to dig a bit further, and now we're testing for ASRP roasting. And if successful, try cracking, and we cracked the hash, right? So now we have a set of credentials, which is truly amazing. So first credential set. We have fsmith with the strokes 23. So the first thing that I do, there is a lot of openings, right? That really happened just because we found a pair of credentials. We could try authenticating this against every single protocol that's open, right? Like SMB, VNRM, RDP, RPC, LDAP, right? We can get a lot more information now. And we can check Kerberoast. By the way, when you check Kerberoast once, right, after you have a set of credentials and you test it once, you don't really need to recheck it again because nothing really changes. Either the domain is vulnerable to Kerberoasting or it's really not, right? So we just need to check this once. That will be the first thing that I will be checking. So Kerberoast. We can do it like so. So this is the password section right there. And then fsmith, this is the user section right here. And then the domain will be placed right here. And the IP, once again, is target. And let's see if any of the users are vulnerable to Kerberoasting. hsmith. It seems like hsmith is. So yeah, let's try this again. Okay, I think I recognize what's wrong here. This person is vulnerable to Kerberoasting, but again, yeah, the clock skew is too great. So, yeah, I think I have in my notes something clock skew maybe. No. I think I should have something. Let's see. NT. Something like that, yes. Okay, so let's try that first. R date. We can install that, sure. Let's try R date -n and then the target like so. We can try that again. Nope. Let's try the NTP date. Did I type that correctly? Let's try installing that as well. Let's try with the domain right here. And let's try the command once again. No. Let's try with IP. Also didn't work. So we have a clock skew issue right there. Let's simply just Google it. Did I not run this? Okay. Yeah, we can try this right here. Simply just turn this off, and then we possibly change it like so. There we go. So the clock skew issue right there, but there we have our hash. Awesome. So this is a EGS, right? So take it running service. This is a Kerberos hash. So John should have an easy time cracking this as well. So guess we can slam this into the notes as well. Tried Kerberos thing. Found hash. Yeah, that's correct. Also fixed some clock skew issues with this doesn't hurt to add in, I suppose. But yeah, there we go. So let us try to actually crack this hash. And then TGS, like so. Let's see. H. Smith. So, okay. The H. Smith and the T. Smith seems to be using the same password. Interesting. Second credential set. Okay, so now we have a lot to test. It makes sense to check F. Smith because we found him after. No, it's... Sorry, let's see. H. Smith, I mean. There we go. So it makes sense to check him first, in my opinion. for shell, etc. Because in CTFs, etc., they kind of wanted to be more like linear. So we found this first, and then we found this after, because we couldn't have Kerberos to this user without getting access to this user. So we've tried Kerberosting and cracked that. Now let's try authenticate with every protocol, right? And that's exactly what we will be doing. So H-Smith. So yeah. Netic saying H-Smith. Let's try this. I misspelled the username. Okay, so this is a valid credential set. We can enumerate shares, etc., but we don't have a direct child, right? So we can print money. Okay, I'll check this later. For now, I want to see if I can get a direct shell. That would be the most interesting, so let me check with the protocols that are open. Let's see. Been around. What is open? So let's check the ports again. LDAP is open. This is Vinaram, by the way. This is open. Just didn't work. We don't have 338 mine. That will be RDP, but that could be another thing to check. So yeah, that didn't work. What about F-Smith? Do you have access to Vinaram? So F-Smith does have access to Vinaram. That's good. F-Smith can get shell over Vinaram. So that was the first user that we found. Let me check one thing. You can now enumerate, since we have credentials, the users. So we can see all of the users. So it really is just those users, and sometimes credentials will be left in a description field, but not in this case. So yeah, let us get shell on Vinaram using F-Smith. Alright. So we can use a tool called Evolve Vinaram. This is the IP. STMF is the user, and the password is this. Awesome. So now we can see the permissions. We are in the remote management users, and that's why we were able to get a shell to begin with. None of these privileges seems interesting to me at all. Immediately, this doesn't seem that interesting in terms of the groups, but I will definitely check with Power Up. That is running, that's good. So I can grab Power Up Luxor, and I'll put it into Power Up the piece one. And we are running as PowerShell. So let me simply invoke the script. Power Up. And then let's execute this function. Invoke all checks. And this essentially just does a lot of common privilege escalation checks. And I always like to run this before WinPiece, because this is a lot quicker, and it typically gives me the useful things that I need to be able to get from Privesk, yeah? Especially when it comes to services and stuff like this. This is a DLL hijack, and that is almost never useful at all. So got shell over Vinaram. Nothing really useful immediately from power up and permission/groups. Okay. So we could definitely enumerate that. Can enumerate more with WinPiece and random stuff. But moving on for now. Check later. Right. So this is just like a little note to myself. So that I can check later, but for now I want to move on. So I suppose we can enumerate those shares. Let's do that. So we do have write permission right here to this share. Rico printer. Okay, so this is a printer. And we can write to it. Let me try accessing it at least and see if there's anything interesting on it, and then we take it from there. So I'm gonna be using, SMB client for this. Something like so. That is the name. NASA Smith is the username. Let's try that. So it doesn't like the share name. Right. It shouldn't be like so. Let's try that. There we go. Gone through the list. Now, if I knew that people were going to the share, we could drop like a hash stealing thing, like an LNK file, etc. We could try going back to the machine and attack the printer, like specifically, see if there's like a previous there. But let's see. I could also definitely run Bloodhound as well. These are all interesting things that we could do. But yeah, let me start with Bloodhound. Actually, IPC. Let me check the print one first. I could crawl this to make it faster. That would be a lot nicer, to be honest. And then... Sorry, let's see. Cheers. You could spider it using that exactly like so. Let me just do that. And let me get back to you when this is done. Yeah, let's just check it out. I'm not really sure I'm expecting anything useful, to be honest. But the most important part is just not getting stuck, right? It just makes sense to check, just in case there's something interesting, but I don't really expect it. Yeah. None of this feels interesting in the slightest. So that's okay. Now, we have two options really, right? We haven't really explored the Prevesk at all, and we haven't really explored Bloodhound. So, we do have a shell, so let's try the Prevesk properly, see if there's anything there. If we find absolutely nothing, then I would like to go Bloodhound and check for domain privilege escalation paths that is more domain specific, right? Because that is kind of what Bloodhound does. So, let's back to F Smith, because they were actually able to get a Veneram shell. And then let's go back to our folder. Where's my win piece? I might have accidentally deleted that, but yeah, let's say win piece get hunt. Let me grab this one right there. Win piece x64. All right. So we can copy the IP. And let's do it like so. Now, Wimpus will take some time. That's why I just like to quickly skim through the permissions and run power up, but always do check Wimpus, because it does do more checks. Okay, it is getting downloaded. There we go. So let me just let this one run, and I will get back to you once it's done. And actually, as it was running, I saw something extremely interesting. Let's see, where was it? Here we go, yeah. Default username, service loan manager M moneymates, the world go round. So this is awesome. Also, let's see, we are done with enumerating shares and authentication for the most part, yeah. Let me copy like that. So while this runs, I would definitely like to play with that. Huh? So service loan manager. Status log on failure. Let me just see. Really? Ah, I was confused. This is weird. Did it change username? That was very weird. They might have changed the username. That was confusing. Because it doesn't authenticate, even though I was pretty sure I copied correctly. And then when I actually checked the users on the box using net users, then yeah. Interesting. Alright. Then let's change the username to this. And let's attempt again. There we go. Okay. So we have now... and this is why we always run permissions, power up, and then WinP's rights to just properly check it. With WinP's, we found auto logon, creds, can authenticate over WinRM with needy user. Awesome. So let us pretty much just try that. So put it in quotes because it has an exclamation mark right there. And then do it like so. Awesome. So now we have our new user. This new user also doesn't have anything immediately intriguing. Network authenticated user, anti-them authentication. And again, remote management user, that's why we're able to WinRM into it. So I think that we once again just grab power up piece one. Whoops. Okay, so this command doesn't work. Let's try... Let's try use basic parsing like so. And then let's try power up PS1. That seems to work, awesome. So now let's once again run this right there. Invoke all checks. So once again a DLL hijack that I don't really care about. And it didn't really find anything else interesting. Alright. And I don't think any of these groups are particularly interesting. So... but that's okay. We are currently on the previous section again because we got a new user, so... let's do this. And again, if we find absolutely nothing with WinP as well, then I will run Bloodhound and see if there's any domain attacks we can do. Because we do have access to a lot of users. I think 3 users by now. HSmith, S-Smith, and the service law manager. So yeah. And then use basic parse thing. Let's try it like so. Misspelling. And then this will once again take a bit of time to both transfer, but also to execute. But let me get back to you when it's done, and let's go through the all right. This path is decently long, or maybe it's just me being slow at the first step. Maybe a bit of both, but it's now done. Let's now go through the output. We just took a little break, now it really looked, so... Let us skim through. Nothing really interesting so far. It does spit out a lot of information. So these are pretty much the same ports that we're used to. Yeah. Not interested in DLL hijacks, but it does show a lot of them. Yeah. Whole noted. No, actually, we don't have write permission to this place, so there's really no point, I believe. A lot of that hijacking there, it gives so much output. Most of it is just worth to skim through. The same thing here, 100 right there. Nothing so far interesting. But it does make a lot of checks, which is awesome. This is the domain. We've already found these credentials. Yeah. Don't think there is something. No history files. Checking environment variables. Okay, that's pretty much it. I can't say that was particularly interesting. Yeah, I want to check with Bloodhound mail. This machine is long, but that's perfectly fine. So the way you can check with Bloodhound is you write LDAP with a set of credentials that you can get authenticate over LDAP. It even works anonymously if you can actually do that right. And I like running the Bloodhound Community Edition because I just don't really get any dependency issues, and people have struggled with dependency issues, so this works really well for me. Here, let me copy this, put it into temp. And then we can set up Bloodhound using Docker. So this will take some time, so I'll be right back. Should be mostly goody-goody. Okay, so it has generated a first-time password for us. Now by default, it goes to port 8080 localhost. That's where we can interact with the web UI of Bloodhound. So the default is admin, and then this password right here. And then we have to generate your own one. So this is the old password. Then let's set our new one. So let's say, really the users that we have owned so far is Service Loan Manager, F. Smith, and then I believe H. Smith. Yes. We pretty much have access to all of these users, which is good. So now we have to go to, let's say, administration and then ingest the data. So let me do that. Go to temp. I put it to temp, by the way, because so the user doesn't need, so the browser doesn't have to run as root to actually grab the file, right? Because I am in the root directory. So that is just why I like doing that. So this file will ingest, and I'll be back once it's... So the status message is now set to complete. And we can now head over to the Explore tab to actually look at the ingested data, right, in Bloodhound. So really, the first thing that I like to do, it's pretty much just to take all the users that we actually have already access to, and then just tell Bloodhound that, hey, these are owned objects. So we can left click on it and then right click and set to add to owned, and then do that with all the users. So I believe it was H. Smith, add to owned, and then also F. Smith, add to owned. Awesome. So these are the users that we would like to see if there's any interesting paths from. So I like to go to cipher queries because these are pre-built cipher queries and searches that will be useful to essentially map out the domain. So we can, for instance, look at all of the domain admins. So we can see that the administrator is a part of the domain admins. And in terms of the domain admins, it's pretty much just one member, right? And that's administrator. But you could map out all sorts of things with Bloodhound, but there are some things that are more interesting in my opinion. Like the Corberostable users, for instance. We know that there is one, and Bloodhound would tell us. The same thing with the F. Smith user being Astrip roastable as well. So the shortest path is also interesting. Let's see. It sometimes tells us the shortest path to domain admin. Default domain controller. We don't really have these accesses right here. Let's see what this is. A common way for attacker to abuse unconstrained delegation is for attackers to coerce a domain controller using a principler. Interesting. Let's say let's see. Let me just check out the host name. We can't see system info. That's interesting. We can always try like a spool attack regardless. Something like this. No, wait, not this one. I mean, Quint Nightmare. This is more just for fun, just to test it. Let me see if the spool binary is there, and it is. Let's see, do I even have it in my Prevesk? I don't really think any of this is maybe intended path, and there's obviously no guarantee of working, but it would be fun to try. So let's get back to my notes. Let me describe it like that. wget use basic parsing. Then we can pretty much run it like so to test it. We can see if that actually worked. And yeah, that it is vulnerable to this attack. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's the intended path, but that seems to be a path. So yeah. So it added this. Let us try this for fun. So let's say admin. Oops. Okay, so we have added it successfully. And it is an administrator user. So does that mean we can remotely dump hashes like so? Indeed, it seems like it. Okay. So this is a way that... I suppose this is one way you can do the machine. I'm not sure if it's intended, but it's something to keep in mind. So... hashes and so let's see, the domain and then the user and then the IP. I think this is the format. So yeah, now we are the NT authority. That's cool, but yeah. Let's try without all of this. But it's cool to see That's working. Wind Nightmare worked. And can create admin accounts, dump hashes, get real admin, etc, etc. So let's get back to Bloodhound. I'm not immediately comfortable with this path right here, and I'm unsure if this is the intended one. So let me look at some other things as well. So, shortest path from owned objects. This just tells us how to get to users, or that it's a member of. This is not interesting. Okay, let me go on each individual one thing, or individual user as well. That's also something that I like to do, is to look at the outbound access it has. So, yeah, the outbound object control. So fsmith doesn't seem to have any at all. Inbound isn't that is as interesting, because it's like something else has control over fsmith, but we want to be able to control something else, so we can change some permission or add ourselves to a group, etc. So outbound object control is the most interesting by far. Let's go to service loan manager next. And they actually have one outbound object control over the domain. Okay, this is definitely a lot more interesting. Let's look at get changes all. Linux abuse. And we can literally just perform sequosump. Okay, so yeah, that is awesome. Let us just copy this, I suppose. Let's look up secrets dump. So let's see. So that's the domain. We aren't going to be using admin because it's the user service loan manager that has this get changes all over the domain. They have this outbound object control that allows them to essentially perform this action, which is obviously incredibly dangerous. So let us copy this name right here. And then let's specify the password. Like so. And then the IP. All right, let's try this. And yeah, so they just have the actual rights to do this, which is insane, right? So we can once again do the same thing with PSExec, but we have already done it, right? Yeah. So this is the administrator, and then this is the same hash as we used right here, right? So yeah. So there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed this machine. Hope you learned something new and useful.